Hi everyone, I'm Gina from Gondotti and welcome to my channel. I've been teaching dot painting for a little while now and I decided to share some of my tips and tricks on YouTube. I think that there's a bit of a lack of tutorials for people who have never painted before. I find that some of them you have to have some sort of knowledge before you start. So I thought I'd do one for someone that doesn't actually have any experience with dot painting and do the absolute basics to get the best results when you decide you want to do more. So here we go. First of all, I'd like to just point out that I use a ceramic tile to teach my beginners. It's a nice smooth surface. It's easy to clean off and it doesn't matter whether you make a mistake. So it makes life a lot easier. If you don't have a ceramic tile, a glazed ceramic tile, an old plate maybe, something with a flat surface that's glazed, and you'll find that it's a lot easier to learn. The other thing that I was going to mention is baby wipes. They are amazing. We all make mistakes, we all make messes. It's great to clean your tools with because we usually clean our tools each time we change colour, obviously, and it'll make your life so much easier. I buy them when they're on special. It doesn't have to be a name brand or anything like that. Just a wet wipe is fantastic. The other little things that I do use a lot are Q-tips. We all make mistakes. We all have little oopsies, and these are amazing. It's the easiest way to take the dots off. I actually found some of these online the other day. They're very fine tipped Q-tips. They're actually for nail art, but they're really handy for getting into the smaller spaces. Say a dot runs into the next one and you want to just clean that up. These are fantastic. What else can I tell you? A Lazy Susan. I got this one from Kmart for just a few dollars. It makes life very easy because you can actually turn the turntable instead of having to turn your work. If you're doing some painting on a flat, just a stable flat surface, you actually have to turn your work, because if you lean across, 9 times out of 10 you'll put your arm in it and that ends in disaster. So using one of these makes life a lot easier. What I've done recently also is I got some non-slip matting. I was finding that putting the work directly onto the turntable was damaging the bottom of it, particularly plaster things like tea light candles, worry stones, things like that. And also they move on the turntable, particularly the larger pieces. You'll find that your piece will end up not centered and it makes life difficult. So I cut out a circle, put it on top, and the problem was solved. It grips, it won't let your work move, and it prevents damage to the underside of it. So that's a good one. The next thing is, we all make a mess when we paint. There's no two ways about it. I've tried not to. I am not the neatest painter in the world, but nevertheless, we all make a bit of a mess when we go. So I have got puppy pads, puppy training pads. They're ideal because the underside is waterproof, it's absorbent on the top, and they're cheap to buy. And one puppy pad will last forever. The only time that I do change it is occasionally I'll have people over, and if I want to make the place look a bit neater, I'll change it. But these are amazing for any craft really, not just painting, and they're disposable, which is really good. We don't have to worry about having paint all over the work surface and so forth. I use Happy Dotting rods. They are amazing. They come from the Happy Dotting company, and they have the sizes on the actual rod. They're online if you're interested in purchasing some. Amazing. The other thing is your chalk pencil. This one's a chalk pencil. I also use a white charcoal pencil as well. This is essential when we trace our templates onto our work. I find that the charcoal pencil and the chalk pencil come off so easily. I've tried other ones and it's just a problem trying to get the marks off afterwards. So chalk pencil or charcoal pencil is great. And the actual template, which we'll be using later on in future tutorials. This also comes from Happy Dotting Company. It's flexible. It's made of silicone, and it's the only template that you'll ever need. Because sometimes particularly if we're doing worry stones or tea light candles, something with a curved surface, this will mold to the actual surface. And obviously it's great for flat surfaces as well, but they're online as well. What else can I tell you? I use plastic pallets a lot of the time if I'm doing smaller jobs, but if I'm doing larger jobs, I use these little paint pots. I just get them from the $2 shop. They're just plastic with a plastic lid, and they keep the paint fresh. Particularly if you're doing a larger job, you don't want to waste paint. And in the palette, you can cover it, but it just doesn't stay fresh as long as it does in these little tubs. I think I got 6 for $3, so they're really good to have. Okay, so if I think of anything else, I'll let you know, but I think we might get painting. Stand by. Hi everyone, I'm back, and I think we will have our first lesson in placing dots. I just like to explain firstly that when we do dot painting, the paint is actually quite thin compared to other types of painting. It is almost the consistency of thickened cream. Before it's whipped. So this stops peaks forming when we make dots, and it's just a lot easier to work with, particularly when we start doing swooshes and so forth. So there are lots of paints on the market. My go-to is mandalaart because it comes straight out of the bottle, the correct consistency. You can actually buy what's called a flow medium. I've got some mixed up in a little bottle, and you can just use the dripper end to add a few drops if the paint is too thick. Sometimes if you've stored it in these little containers for a while, it does go a bit thick, so it's always good to have that on hand. So I think we'll start with our first dot. I'm going to use the green tool, the green stylus. I use the ones with the curved end on them, but they're also available with the straight end, so it's personal choice. So what we do is we just dip the end into our paint. I like to use a scooping motion because we do use quite a bit of paint on our tools when we're dotting. So having done that, we've got the paint on our tool, and we just very gently kiss the surface of the tile and we've got our first dot. And it's nice and round, there's no peak on it, and it's holding its shape. So that paint is the correct consistency. I also wanted to explain too that you can get different size dots from using the same tool. It just depends how much paint is on the end of it. So if I just put a tiny bit on the end of this stylus and do a dot, I've actually got quite a bit smaller dot than the previous one, simply because I didn't put as much paint on there. So that's a handy tip to know. So what we use a lot of is, and I don't know whether you've heard of it, is walking the dots. That is incorporated into a lot of the patterns that we do. So having done our first dot, walking the dots is just a series of dots, but we don't reload the tool. We just use the paint that's actually on the tool for the whole row. So I'll just show you. We do our first dot and then just keep going until the paint runs out on the end of the stylus. And the less paint there is on the stylus, obviously the smaller the dots, as I explained over here. So it's quite simple. Once you get the hang of it, it just takes a little bit of practice. And I also wanted to let you know too that when you do dots, have them close together but not touching, because otherwise this will happen. If I put one next to it, you'll end up with a blob, and you don't want that. So just place them close to each other but not touching. But that's walk the dots. You can do it in a straight line or a curve. I'll show you how to do that. I'll just get another baby wipe. There we go. Right, so if you wanted to do a curve, same process, load your tool, make the first dot, and then just go around in your curve. And to make the other side, just gently tap on the middle dot and then do the rest of your dots. There we are, and we have a curve. I'll show you in a minute. I call it the lotus pattern, which is used a lot. It's using a center dot, and the walk the dots is actually surrounding the center dot. So we'll do that one next, and then we'll recap what I've been showing you today. I'll use the number 7 end of the tool. Obviously that's the size of the dot, but just keep in mind that when you make the dot, it can be slightly bigger than that end, because the paint spreads when you put it on the surface. So I'm just using some paint that I've used from another project. So we'll just get plenty of paint on the end of our rod, hold the rod vertically, and just kiss the surface of the tile. There we go. That paint's actually a little bit thick, but it'll be okay for today. So we've got our center dot. Now we are going to start making our lotus shape. For the first row, I'm going to use the small end of the pink stylus because I want small dots. So here we go. I place the first dot in the center of the circle, and then I want to walk the dots around without touching that center dot, and just keep it nice and neat. And there we are. I like to count my dots because that way I get it even both sides. So we'll do the other side. I gently touch that center dot again. That helps to make it bigger and pinpoint the center of the dot. And then we just keep going around. There we go. We've got our first row done. The next thing that I would like to share with you when you're doing your lotus pattern in the next row, because I want to get a peak at the center of that dot, I'll put my dot up just slightly further away from that first row, and instead of going pretty much side to side, I'm going to tuck it in underneath that middle dot, and then I'll continue on around doing my walk the dots. There we go. And same thing for the other side, just touch that middle dot. Oops, I didn't get enough paint. Middle dot, and we walk the dots around, and we've got that nice shape happening. If you don't tuck these first dots in underneath that middle dot, you'll end up with a circle, which sometimes we do want a circle, but other times we want this pattern, which is quite popular. So we'll do another row. We'll just do 3 rows for today as a practice. I'm going to change to the large end of the pink stylus now, because we've got further to go, and so we need to have more paint on our stylus. So obviously the larger end will hold more paint. So I load it up, and this time what we'll do is we'll put that first dot there, but because we've got further to go, there's not going to be enough paint on this stylus to get all the way around. So this time I'll reload and dot, reload and dot, and then continue on with my walk the dots to the end of the pattern. We'll do that again. Oops. Reload, reload, and then dot around. There we go, and it's looking quite pretty. Now, see how I got too close right there, and they've run into each other and formed a blob. That is a perfect example of what we don't want to do, because it just looks unsightly. But for the purpose of this exercise, it was probably good that it happened so that you can see what not to do. What I'm going to do is just recap what I've been over today. So you've got your tile, which makes life a lot easier. We learnt to do 1 single dot by loading your stylus with paint, holding it over the surface and just gently kissing the surface to get your dot. Now I'll just wipe that off. And walking the dots, we again load our paint on. Actually, one thing I was going to mention is when I load my stylus, I use a scooping motion to scoop it out of the pot, because that way you get that little bit more paint on there. So walking the dots is simply 1 dot and then keep going, and they'll gradually get smaller until there's no more paint left. Hi again, and I hope you enjoyed your first dotting lesson. Have a practice on your tile. Interestingly, I just finished teaching my daughter dot painting. She wanted to do one of my DIY suncatcher kits, which you'll find online, and they are for beginners or advanced people if you'd like to make a suncatcher. She is the least crafty person I know, and she actually did a really good job. The kit has 15 pages of photos and step-by-step instructions, everything you need to make your suncatcher, and now she's hooked. I actually think she might be a closet crafter, but she's just not telling Mum. But yeah, we can work up to things like that. I am planning on doing a tutorial once a week. So if you've enjoyed this, please subscribe to my channel. Give me a comment, and if there's anything that you would like to know about or any questions, just feel free to leave a comment and I'll get back to you and help you out. Thanks everybody, and thanks for watching. Bye.